So here's our inverter, mains inverter, takes a feed off the batteries at that end via a 200 amp breaker onto the terminals on the back, and then obviously the other end we've got 3-pin plugs, and I've unplugged it at the moment obviously because we've got a bit of an issue with it. So last night when we turned the TV on, the inverter went into alarm. So I came in here into the garage. The alarm obviously was sounding. There was a little warning on the LED or on the liquid crystal display there. So I turned it off at that red switch, waited a few minutes, and then as I turned it back on, something went pop inside. Did make me jump a bit, to be honest. There was a bit of a bang, and the display was completely dead. The whole inverter was completely dead, and I couldn't actually turn it on at all. So something's blown inside the inverter, so we can't use it at all. So we've got no 230 volt supply to any of the sockets in the van when we're off grid. I'm going to have to see if we can source a replacement, or at least take this one out for the moment, open it up, do a little bit of an autopsy and see what actually went wrong. But at the moment we can't get it to work. Now, not having the inverter supply leaves us with a little bit of a problem, because what I did when we fitted the van out is I put these 230 volt sockets with USBs in. I didn't listen to the advice that was given me from all you guys that were watching at the time and told me to put some 12 volt USBs in. All I've got is sockets in the van with USBs. So the only way we can charge our tech is if I've got the inverter running. I've got no dedicated 12 volt USB charging points other than the one that's in the front of the cab that runs off the van battery. Even the socket that we've got on the front of the bench here is also off of that 230 volt supply. So it's fine while we're on hookup, and we're on a campsite at the moment where I can get a hookup. So we have got power. It's not like we haven't got power, but I just can't be off grid at the moment without that inverter. Now, I knew this was an issue the last time we went out into Europe and the last time we was off grid, and obviously all the advice that everybody had given me on the videos previously. So I had purchased these 12 volt USB sockets, so they just take a 12 volt supply on the back, and then we can just plug our tech into that. And these ones actually come with an on-off switch, which is quite handy. They don't normally have that facility. So I've got these here. So what we did is we went out to the supermarket. It was a local Carrefour hypermarket. They normally got everything, and I managed to pick up some cable. This is a 2-core 0.75mm, but the rating on these is only a couple of amps, so a 0.75 cable is going to be more than enough for these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some cable in to feed these USBs. That's going to enable us to charge all our tech while we're off grid. Now fortunately, one thing has worked in my favour, that when we did the installation, I've put these additional blade fuse holders in the cupboards. This one's above the bench seat. There's the bench seat there, obviously. There's Lou drinking a cup of tea.
Of course.
And this is like a subboard, so I've got a power cable feeding it, although that's only very small. That's 1.5mm, that cable feeding it, so I'm just going to have to be a little bit careful with the load that I put here. But there's only lighting on this little board, so as long as you don't use all the appliances together, it's only what you're drawing at that particular time. And then I have got these conduits here where we pre-wired the van originally. Now I know this conduit here, that's only got these couple of control cables in, goes all the way down, and all the way down that pillar there by the side of the window and into the bench seat where the Truma heater is. So I know that I can get a cable from underneath this bench seat all the way up the inside of the van, out of that conduit, and I can wire onto that blade fuse holder. So I can get my USB charging points down here in the bench. So I could have one there, I could run a cable along inside, I could have another charging point over there. So that's going to give us a couple of places we can use in the living area of the van. First thing I've got to do is try and pull that cable through. Now fortunately I did come prepared. I have got my electrical toolbox with me, with all my electrical tools in there, so at least we will be able to do this wiring. Right, so that conduit comes out there down the bottom inside the bench seat. There's a gap in the conduit, so that cable should emerge from there, and then that'll get us into this bench area. Right, it's fairly thin, this cable, so I'm hoping that it's not going to get snagged on anything, and we should be able to just feed this down. Just keep pushing it down, and with any luck that'll emerge at the bottom. It should be down there in a little bit.
It's through.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's through.
Oh, that's good. So that's that cable there through that conduit all the way down that pillar by the side of the window, and there you can see it emerging down the bottom. We've got loads of cable in now, so that's concealed that right the way through. So we just need to terminate those now, top and bottom. So that's got those two cables made off onto that blade fuse holder. I've just dug out a 5 amp fuse because I'm going to put a couple of those charging points on this little cable. I won't plug that in just yet until we've got the other end made off. It has got a tiny little positive and negative, so just make sure that we get the right ones on there. There we go. So that's the USB charging socket connected to the other end of the wire. All it remains now is to plug one of these little blade fuses into this blade fuse holder. Okay, now we can plug a phone into the other end and test it out. So we're all plugged in, fuses in. Now these have got a little on-off switch on them, so we can turn it on. And you'll see that it will tell me my battery condition, 13.5. We have got a little bit of solar at the moment, which is probably why that's so high. So we've got plenty of power. Plug in the iPhone just to check that it works. And there we go, charging. So now we're all good to charge direct off of our leisure batteries without the inverter. Okay, so first part of the inverter autopsy. This is the inverter that I've got. I know a lot of you are going to be screaming at the screen saying, Greg, why have you bought that Chinese rubbish? I know, don't need to tell me. So initially on the end here, underneath these little plastic covers, is all the input fuses. So there's 7 blade fuses. So we can pull these out, they are a bit tight. And then the first thing we'll do is we'll test one of these. Sometimes you can see, we'll test and see if they're blown. So continuity on there, not on there. And I think if I look, yeah, I can definitely, I don't know if you can get a close up of that, I can definitely see a break in the wire there. Can you see that? Anyway, that one's blown, so I guarantee the rest of them are blown. So, but the thing is, it's not just a case of replacing these fuses, because there'll be a reason why they've blown. So something maybe would have shorted out inside. So I have got a spare set of fuses, but I'm not going to put them in and try it, because chances are they'll just go again. So I think we'll take it all apart and see if we can see what's happened inside. Something's probably shorted out inside, I guess. The obvious thing is there's 8 screws on the end, 8 screws on this end. So first thing to do is to take these out, and we'll see where that gets us. And I need to get a brighter light in here so I can have a good look around, see if I can find something that may have got some signs of burning out. Well, I've had a bit of a dive inside here and had a bit of a look around, and usually you can see some signs of some burn marks on the PCB or something like that, but I can't actually see anything obvious immediately without actually tearing this thing apart. Quick blow fuse there seems to be intact. So to be honest with you, I'm not really going to mess about with these circuit boards anymore. I'm just going to jump online and see if I can source a replacement. So the question is, how do we get this inverter? We're living in the van, we're on the south coast of France, and we haven't got a fixed address to post anything to. So the first thing that came to mind was obviously Amazon, because I know they've got these hub lockers located everywhere, you know, all across Europe. I've seen them in the UK. They're just a bright orange locker. They're usually located in a shopping centre or a petrol station or somewhere like that. Your parcel gets delivered to the locker. You get the combination to the locker sent to your phone or by email, and then you can go and pick up your parcel. But there's a few little idiosyncrasies with the fact that you're in Europe. I'll run through just quickly now, so if you ever need to do this, you'll know the correct way to do it. I went onto my Amazon account via the UK website, and what you have to do is you have to add the particular hub locker to your delivery options in your delivery addresses. Now on the UK website, it wouldn't allow me to add a European locker to my addresses. What I had to do is go on to the French Amazon website, log into my account on the French website, then it would allow me to add the Amazon locker that's here in the south of France on my delivery options. Now I went back into the UK site, found the inverter that I was after, then tried to deliver it to that hub locker, but because I was logged into the UK website, that delivery option didn't come up. Even though I'd added it when I was on the French site, I couldn't order it via the UK website. So I had to go back onto the French Amazon website, and then I couldn't find the inverter that I was looking for, because this is something ridiculous with Amazon, but you can only order stuff that's on the French website for delivery to a French hub locker. I couldn't order something from the UK website for delivery to the European locker. Don't ask me why, it's just something to do with Amazon. So I then had to try and find the inverter on the French website. Now all I was finding was inverters with European sockets, with the 2-pin sockets on, and obviously we've got a 3-pin socket. Now I know, yes, I could cut that cable off, unwire that 3-pin socket. I could buy a 2-pin plug from a hypermarket here and I could rewire that. But I really didn't want a European inverter with a 2-pin socket on it. I wanted a UK inverter with a 3-pin socket on it. So after a bit more searching, I did manage to find a 1500 watt inverter with 3 pins on it. And it was actually one that had been recommended to me by my good friend Gadget John. He's got this particular inverter in his van, and also did a bit of further research, and there was an article online that said it was the best. It was in like the top 7 of inverters that were available. So it come with some good recommendations. So I've managed to find a UK 3-pin inverter on the French version of Amazon, and then I've managed to order that and then use that Amazon hub locker as my delivery address. Now it's still going to take a couple of days to get to that hub locker. They told me initially it was going to be about 4 or 5 days. So all we need to do is just kick our heels around the south of France, which isn't too sad because it's absolutely lovely down here. You know, we're staying on this gorgeous vineyard at the moment, which is fantastic, and the services here are lovely. So we'll just kick back for a couple of days and wait for this inverter to turn up. I'll keep monitoring my emails and text messages, and as soon as they say it's delivered, we can shoot down the road and go and collect it. One more thing I found as well, because I'm logged into the French website, for some reason I'm not getting any email confirmations about delivery. So I have to keep logging into the French site, checking my account and updating the tracking information. So I'm not getting direct notifications. So just be aware, if you've done this, if you've ordered something, you do need to keep logging in and checking what the current status is. So fast forward a couple of days and I've just got an email notification to say that Amazon are delivering today, anytime up till 9 o'clock at night. So we're sitting in a local McDonald's. We're about 15 minutes down the road from the Amazon hub locker, and we're just waiting for the message to say that it's been delivered, and then we'll go and pick it up. So we're here at the locker, just got to put in the code that they've given me, should be able to get the parcel. One inverter, hopefully. Let's get back in the van. So here's the box that we picked up from the Amazon locker late last night. So let's get it unboxed and have a look inside. There's our new inverter. Obviously positive and negative on that end, and then these should be our 3-pin plugs on this end. There we go. And there is a couple of USBs there as well by the looks of things. So as well as the inverter in the box, we've also got some cables. There's the positive cable, and it also includes an inline fuse. This is 2 which is 35mm. I've already run 35mm cable to my old inverter, so I probably won't use these, and I've got a breaker rather than these replaceable fuses, which is a bit more user friendly. So although you know you can use these, I probably won't be. Same on the negative, another 2 cable, nice big chunky cable, but again I've got 35mm cable already installed. And then lastly, looks like it's got a little remote controller to turn the inverter on and off remotely, and then that's obviously got that little telephone wire basically with some little RJ sockets. So we will use the remote on off because the inverter is going to be located in the garage at the back. Now this inverter comes with 2 USB ports on the front here for charging your tech, but you normally want to install this somewhere where it's not very convenient to get to these 2 ports. So what you can buy is a USB extension cable like I've got here. So there's simply a couple of USB plugs on one end and a couple of USB sockets on the other end. And then what you get cable in different lengths. So you simply plug the plugs in the front of the inverter, and then you can mount that socket somewhere a bit more convenient. I'll put some links in the description for where you can purchase these. Okay, so I'm in the garage. A little bit cramped in here, so excuse the close-up. Right, that looks like that fits really nice. There's the plug obviously from our old one. I'm going to screw it down to this wheel arch cover that I made with these little mounting feet here, and then This is my 35mm negative cable, which the negative is closest handy, and then I've got a 35mm cable to go from that breaker onto the positive the other side. Now I will need to swap this breaker out because this inverter is 1500 watts. My previous inverter was 2000 watts. This is a 200 amp breaker. What I will do is I'll source a 150 amp breaker, which will be better rated for this smaller inverter. Okay, so I've got the positive and negative connected at the back of the inverter. That was my existing 35mm negative cable, that fitted lovely. I've actually taken my breaker out of the line on the positive because my breaker's rated at 200 amps. This inverter is only 1500 watts, whereas my previous one was 2000 watts. So it actually needs a smaller breaker. Now the inline fuse that they provided is 150 amps. So I really need to get myself a 150 amp breaker, and then I can obviously swap that one out. So for the moment, so we're safe and covered, I'm going to use their inline fuse, and I've used their cable as well. So this is a bit of a temporary measure connected onto my battery there where the other positive was connected, but obviously it will give us better protection. And then at a later date, when I've got a bit of time, I'll swap that breaker out for a 150 amp breaker. Just makes it a bit more usable, because if the fuse goes, you've got to try and source a 150 amp fuse. Whereas if the breaker trips, all I've got to do is find the source of the problem and then reset it. So now I'll just take the 3-pin plug and plug that in. And then we just need to plug the remote in. Yeah, there is a little power switch at the back. Turn that on. Oh, there we go, look. Display's illuminated. Now obviously I think because the remote's off, let's just flick it on the remote again. Ah, there we go, look. Saying 13.3 volts coming in. All illuminated, lovely. Let's have a quick look at my panel. Oh yeah, panel saying it's getting 230 volt supply. So now we should be able to just flick the changeover switch to the inverter. And now everything in the van is powered with 230 volts. So all we need to do now is just check all the sockets in the van that they're working alright. I'll take my little plug tester and I'll just do that just to make sure. Okay, so lastly I'll just plug my little plug tester in. Now bearing in mind we are off grid, so I haven't got a permanent earth on a hookup. 2 red lights, that means live and neutral in the right order. The 3rd red light is just the earth, but as I say we haven't got one, so that works fine. And then lastly I'll just plug in this iPhone on the USB, just check that that works. Yeah, that's charging. So we're all good. Back up and running. I did have my doubts about that original inverter because since the day we installed it, we couldn't actually use any of our smart devices when they were plugged in and being charged by it, which made me wonder about the quality of the power supply. So actually I'm quite pleased that we managed to get it swapped out. Obviously it's a nuisance that it blew up while we were on our trip, but it just goes to show you that you get these problems when you're touring around and they can be resolved. It was really handy being able to use that Amazon locker. It actually was quite a simple process in the end. And thanks very much John for the advice on the new inverter. It's working really well. And it does come with some good reviews. So if you're interested in purchasing an inverter for your van, I'll put some links in the description of this video. I'll put 3 links there. They come in 3 different power supplies, 1100 watt, 1500 watt and a 2000 watt. And the 3 links will be in the description of this video. They're all supplied by Amazon, so they should be readily available. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please do give me a thumbs up and make sure that you're subscribed and hit the little bell notification because you won't want to miss the next video on our European tour. Thanks very much for watching guys. Cheers. Don't video me, I'm stuck in the garage, I can't. It's not funny.
It is, I'm sorry, but it's hilarious.
Help me get out, please.